You've seen what generative AI can do, right? It can whip up a stunning image, a piece of music, or 1,000 pages of text in just a few seconds. But behind all that magic, it's creating a massive legal crisis, a problem so deep it could actually shatter our entire system of intellectual property. And it all starts with one simple question.
And really, it all boils down to this single explosive question. I mean, think about it. A user types a prompt, but the AI model was built by a developer, trained on data from millions of creators, and hosted by a huge platform. So, who actually owns the final thing? Because as you're about to see, our old rulebook, it's completely useless here.
This right here is the fundamental mismatch our legal system is staring down. See, the laws we've got on the books were built for a totally different world, the human world. They're designed for works with a clear author, a stable, fixed form, and a straightforward cause and effect. But AI creation is the polar opposite. It's a tangled web of distributed causation, it's capable of infinite variation, and it emerges from trillions of digital interactions. It is a completely different animal. Okay, so here's the plan for this explainer. We're going to take a journey. First, we'll figure out exactly how AI broke copyright law by looking at 3 core failures in the system. Then, we're going to explore a pretty radical new legal architecture designed for this new world, and see how digital forensics could actually make it work. We'll also cover why just patching up our old laws is a non-starter, and finally, we'll wrap our heads around the massive paradigm shift this whole thing demands. All right, first things first, let's really dig into the problem. And I want to be clear, this isn't just a case of the law needing a little update. The entire system isn't just strained. It has been fundamentally, completely broken by this new technology. You know, you can think of our entire intellectual property system like a 3-legged stool. For any of these laws to actually work, to be enforceable, you have to satisfy 3 basic conditions. But as we're about to see, generative AI comes along and just kicks out all 3 legs at the exact same time. So, let's take a closer look at those 3 legs of the stool. What are they exactly? These are the core institutional failures that show, without a doubt, why our current legal framework is utterly failing in the age of AI. Okay, here they are: identifiability, attributability, and administrability. For any IP law to work, you need all 3. You've got to be able to define what it is you're protecting, you need to know who made it, and you need a court system that knows how to actually enforce the rules. Simple enough, right? Well, AI makes all 3 of those things pretty much impossible. Let's start with identifiability. So, copyright protects a fixed expression, like a specific book or a specific song. But think about it. An AI can spit out 1,000,000 tiny variations of the same image. None of them are really fixed or unique. So how can you legally define and protect something that is essentially a fleeting, probabilistic cloud of infinite possibilities? The short answer is you can't. Next up, attributability. And this is the big one. Who do you sue? Who gets the credit? With AI, the whole idea of causation is completely scrambled. It's not a straight line from an author to a book anymore. It's this massive, tangled web that involves the prompt, the model's architecture, the training data. Trying to assign a single author becomes legally meaningless.
And finally, even if you could magically solve those first 2 problems, you'd slam into this brick wall: administrability. A judge can read a book, they can listen to a song, but they cannot interpret the incredibly complex inner workings of an AI, things like a high-dimensional vector, which is kind of like a map in 1,000 dimensions, or clusters of model parameters. You can't put an AI model on the stand. The very tools of justice are just incompatible with the technology.
Okay, so that's the mess we're in. It's a big one. But the thinking here doesn't just stop at diagnosing the disease. It actually proposes a radical cure. A completely new legal architecture, designed from the ground up specifically for AI. This is the first big pillar of the solution. Instead of trying to protect the final output, the image or the text, the idea is to protect what are called protected generative units, or PGUs. These are the core building blocks inside the AI. Think of it like this. A probabilistic construction pattern is like the unique recipe an AI uses to make a certain kind of sentence. A latent geometric cluster is the AI's internal concept of a specific artistic style. A parameter ensemble is the specific group of virtual neurons that fire together to create, say, a character's face. We shift from protecting the creation to protecting the actual engine of creation itself. So if PGUs are the what, this model, the FTAM, answers the who. It tackles the attribution problem by recognizing that, hey, responsibility is shared across 5 different layers. It starts with the user, the person typing the prompt, but it also includes the model developer who built it, the data curator who chose its training material, and even the platform that puts it out there. Instead of one single author, it assigns responsibility proportionally across the entire creative chain.
Okay, but let's be real. A whole new system of rights is totally useless if you can't actually enforce it, right? So how would this actually work in a courtroom? And that brings us to the third and final pillar of this whole solution.
The proposal calls for something pretty radical, a new kind of judicial body called algorithmic responsibility courts, or ARs. These would be specialized courts that wouldn't rely on traditional evidence. Instead, they'd use a whole new suite of digital forensic tools designed specifically for AI.
And this is the toolkit they'd use. Think of it like CSI for AI. Seriously. Model fingerprinting would take snapshots of an AI's brain at different moments. Latent trajectory logging would create a verifiable chain of custody for every single thing the AI creates. And influence mapping would basically act like DNA forensics, tracing an output all the way back to the specific data that influenced it.
But hold on, you're probably thinking, why all this? Can't we just, update our existing laws? It's the obvious question. Well, the reason is that our old frameworks are just fundamentally incompatible with this new technology. Well, just take a look at this breakdown. When you take the core components of how an AI works, its internal geometry, its probabilistic nature, its parameter clusters, and you try to cram them into our main legal boxes, nothing fits. Copyright? Nope. Patent law? Doesn't work. Trade secret? Only kinda, sorta, sometimes. They were all designed for a completely different reality. The new framework is the only one that's actually built to match the technology it's trying to regulate. So, here's the bottom line. Copyright as a system is structurally incapable of handling AI. Full stop. It's a system built on a foundation of human authorship, fixed works, and originality. Generative AI negates all three of those pillars, and when you do that, the entire building just collapses.
But okay, this is the big objection, right? I mean, come on. You can't seriously expect a judge to understand parameter clusters and latent space trajectories. It just seems impossibly complex.
But that's where this really powerful insight comes in. We don't expect judges to be DNA scientists or chemical engineers. The legal system has always adapted to handle complex new technologies, relying on expert testimony and specialized procedures to get the job done. This isn't really new. It's a challenge the law has actually overcome many, many times before.
So when you put it all together, what we're really talking about is more than just a new set of laws. It's a fundamental shift in how we think about creativity, value, and ownership in the 21st century.
And this is why it matters so much. Without a new system, you get chaos. You have no predictable market for AI investment. You have laws that are completely disconnected from how things actually work. And you risk a future where a few giant tech firms could effectively own the building blocks of our entire culture. This kind of paradigm shift is about aligning the law with reality and making sure we all have some democratic control over our future.
So, we're left with this final question. The evidence is pretty clear that the old framework, built for the analog world, is broken beyond repair. The blueprint for a new one exists. The only remaining question is whether we have the collective will to actually build it, and in doing so, rewrite the very rules of creativity for the generative age.